So, what is your lesson from being independent for so many years? What can you hand over to the young guys?
I would say the greatest thing today's generation of filmmakers have that wasn't available to, let's say, my generation was the barrier to entry. You know, the ability to get into the business. I shouldn't say that. The ability to make your films is so much easier today than it was 30 years ago. You know, back then, you know, you had to find someone who actually knew how to shoot film. You had to rent a camera, buy film, then spend more money to get that film developed, and then figure out how to cut film. So a laborious and very expensive process. For kids today, they can grab their iPhone, cut it on their phone or even on their laptop. So there's nothing preventing them from finding their voice. So I think the greatest thing that young filmmakers can do is, in the way that a songwriter or a painter or a poet or a writer, there is no real cost to sitting down with your guitar and writing 100 songs until you write the song. For filmmakers now, they can make dozens of low budget, no budget films until they figure out how to master their craft, whether it's as a storyteller, through working with actors, through their screenplays, or through using the visual side of filmmaking. So for them, I would say there is no reason not to be doing this every day if this is what you love to do and what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. It's like the guitar. They have their guitar number.
You have the guitar, you have your phone. Go and create your art.
So how did you find your voice? When did you realize that, okay, this is my take on things?
That's a good question. You know, my first film, The Brothers McMullen, going back to having no money to make a film, before I sat down to write that screenplay, I knew I could raise about $25,000, or I thought I could raise $25,000. So I built.
Was that a lot back then?
It was a lot for a kid with no money.
I mean, yeah, of course.
But no, not a lot. Very micro budget film. You know, 3-man crew. We shot it in 12 days over the course of 8 months. But what I did was I listed locations that I could get for free. All right, that's where I started. And that film is a story about, you know, 3 brothers who moved back into their childhood home with their older brother, right? So the bulk of it takes place in a house.
So you don't have any fancy locations. You know, chamber piece, more or less.
Exactly, more of a chamber piece, right? So, and I, you know, I knew I wanted to write about the things that I knew well. Right, it was my first film, one of my first screenplays. I knew that if I knew everything that was going on with those characters, if I knew it pretty intimately, then I could tell that story honestly. Right, so, and then that first film was pretty successful. So I then followed it up with more films of that size. So, like, I think finding my voice in an odd way was due to the fact that I came into the business with no money. You know, when I was in film school, the movies that I was attracted to, that I fell in love with, were smaller character-driven films. You know, the Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show, Billy Wilder's The Apartment, you know, Truffaut's 400 Blows. Like, those are the movies that, as a kid in a classroom, finally getting exposed to real, you know, to that kind of cinema. I was like, oh, I want to tell stories like that, more intimate, character-driven things. So, and then you find your voice through, like we said, picking up the guitar and figuring it out.
By doing and redoing, but I know you usually focus on relationships, perhaps romantic endeavors, love, etc. I guess since you talked about it, you always use perhaps your own background, your own things. So, just a question: would you like to direct somebody else's script which you have no personal relation to? Would that be more difficult?
I used to think I would want to direct someone else's thing, and now, you know, now that I'm in the business 30 years, I have a backlog of probably a dozen unproduced screenplays of my own that I want to get to first.
There's no reason.
So there's no reason. I mean, but you never know. You might, you know, if someone presented me something that I just fell in love with, maybe. But that's not anything I'm sort of looking forward to do.
No. Millers in Marriage, that's a relationship film as well, of course. What particularly in this moment in time, being, I guess, my age, something late 60s, born in early 70s, right?
Yeah, 1968 and
Right.
56, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you look back sometimes of life
Yep.
of things happening, right? So what made you write this particular story at this point in your life?
A couple of things. You know, one was we're the same age, right? Like roughly Gen Xers. When I'm in my 20s and 30s, there were dozens of films being made about people our age. Our first loves, our first jobs, moving to a new city like New York. There were constantly films coming out that sort of put us under the microscope of what was going on with us. So, but now, 30 years later, there are no films about us as real people. We're characters in films, but they're not films that sort of examine what it's like to be in your mid-50s. So I just thought, well...
Because you still feel the same as you're in 20.
Yeah, well, you're still kind of curious
deep in, right?
Yeah, you want to kind of just see what you know, your friends and what, you know, your peers are going through this chapter. And, you know, I think our film takes a look at, you know, three married couples who have just moved, who have just recently become empty nesters, right? Their kids have left the house, and you've got married couples who are now forced to re-examine their marriages, right? But not just their marriages, you know, being in your mid-50s, re-examining your career. You know, do all of the characters in the film to look at artists at a sort of like threshold or crisis moment in their life where, you know, do they still have anything meaningful left to say after creating for 30 plus years? If they have anything left to say, is there an audience out there that actually gives a shit? Yeah, right. You know, can you raise money to do what you want to do? Yeah. You know, and if you are not moving forward, if you are not growing as an artist, you're dying, right? Potentially, you know. So that was sort of the things that I was looking at, and then so that was really, I guess, that was the idea of like, what is it like for folks at this chapter in their lives?
Yeah. So what's your conclusion?
There is no conclusion, you know. I mean, I think for all of the characters in the film, everyone kind of ends up in a different place, and everyone comes to a very different conclusion. Yeah. Some of them are, you know, if you're, you know, like Gretchen Mol, whose character is she's sort of the lead character in the film. You know, she plays a woman who was in an indie rock band in the 90s, and had...
Who wasn't, by the way.
Right, yeah. Yes, exactly. And, you know, had a moment of big success. Yeah. Then she got married, had children, put the career on hold, and now she finds herself in her mid-50s. Her marriage is breaking up, the kids are out of the house, and she says, why did I give all of that up? I was an artist, I thought I had something more to say, and is it too late to sort of go for it again? Is it too late to have a second act? And she decides that no, it isn't too late, and she pursues that dream. There's another character in the film, Campbell Scott, who, you know, he's a novelist, had great literary success in the 90s, and his last couple of novels have not done well. Yeah. And he's lost his passion for the work, right? And he's just afraid he doesn't, you know, does he have anything left to say? But more importantly, you know, does he have the desire to say it? Right. So it also, you know, it's an examination of, you know, some folks when they get older, you know, it's hard to muster up the strength to pick up the guitar every day to write a new song or sit at the laptop and write a new screenplay. So it's sort of a look at, there's no one answer, right?
No.
Yeah. Other than it sucks getting old.
It does. But still, at this point in life, you're still, you know, functioning.
Yeah.
So you still have 25 years, perhaps, good years, you're lucky, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting period in life to examine and look at, you know. Because once you get really old, you realize, okay, then I'm, you know.
Then you're kind of, then you're done.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I'm excited. I think it's a great time. Like, I just came back from Ireland this summer. We made another film there.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. A golfing film, right?
A golfing film.
Oh, you're a golfer?
I'm a golfer, yeah.
Avid golfer?
I am now. I picked up the game 5 years ago. After my mother died, my dad, who I'm here with in Stockholm, he's 87. He still plays golf twice a day. Twice a week. Twice a day would be crazy. Yeah.
Dedicated.
Very dedicated. So I picked up the game to basically keep him company,
Right.
and then I became fully addicted
Yeah,
to the game.
yeah.
So it's the story of a family, an Irish-American family, that after their father dies, he wants his ashes brought back to Ireland, where he's from, to be distributed on his favorite golf courses. So it's a sort of a family comedy built around, again, a couple of men in their mid-50s having to now wrestle with the loss of their father and what their father meant to them, and they have sort of conflicted feelings about that. And then in the spring, we're actually making a sequel to my very first film, The Brothers McMullen.
Oh.
So, which again is another examination. I guess like now that I'm at this age, I guess I'm just feeling very creatively inspired and motivated to kind of examine sort of a few different facets of what it's like to be approaching 60. So.
Yeah, it's a milestone.
Yeah.
It feels old even now,
But you don't. It feels old, but I don't feel so old. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, we have another film screening at the festival. I don't know if you've seen it. Carson Lund's Ethos.
I have not. No.
No, it's a baseball film. It's about baseball, but not really. It's about life, society. So I'm thinking about, are you using the golf metaphor for telling a story more about existential things, or rather the sport itself? Because you have, it's a sports film, but it's not. It's more about life. Or describe it.
It is definitely more about life. It's
Yeah.
about a sort of a family having to heal some wounds, having to reconcile their feelings about their somewhat what would you say, like a father who wasn't there.
Absent father.
An absent father. Yeah, thanks. And the golf is, and it is, though, I haven't seen the baseball film, but it absolutely is a love letter to, let's say, parts of the game that you're not going to see celebrated if you're going to watch a PGA tournament, right? Like that's just beautiful athletes playing a beautiful game.
Yeah.
This is about the other things that happen on a golf course that are, that are a little bit magical.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we try to explore.